We're live.
Since I'm about to throw.
Oh,
Anybody,
go ahead.
I said it in the previous meeting, so if you're hearing this again, sorry. If you know of a nice sized neighborhood that is not pro Governor Ivy that you think we could canvass in Alabama, why did I just say in Alabama?
Well,
Jesus.
yeah, you never know. You never know. It doesn't hurt to
Um,
qualify.
yeah, this is Alabama. Um, drop it in the Q&A so we can look into that.
Yeah.
Just add that here.
Yep. All right, so my name is Jared Budlong. I'm in Alabama. I don't like the way our state is being run and which way it's heading, so I am running for governor. That is what's going on. The weird part for most people who stumble across my account and my campaign is that I do this as transparently as possible. So our campaign meetings are regularly scheduled and publicly live streamed. In fact, they have a public link that you can join the Google Meet. So if I'm looking at this camera here, that's all of the platforms that can see everybody involved. You can join the Google Meet that's showing up on the screen right now. TikTok, if you want to actually join the meeting and have your voice heard rather than a TikTok comment, you can go to the link in my bio, pick one of those other platforms and add comments there, or go to the website, which is the link in the bio, and go to events and meetings. And there is a public Google Meet link inside the button below the image, right? And you can join the Google Meet and have a conversation. So that's where we're at. Today is Saturday, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning. We are having a field organizing meeting. So that is our boots on the ground, talking to people one-to-one, small groups at least, not necessarily live streams. I don't count this as field organizing. We need people talking to other people, preferably face-to-face when it's safe to do so. But that could be canvassing in the neighborhood. It could be talking to your friends and family. It could be, attending events in your area and just chatting about stuff. So that also includes, large events, rallies, protests, things like that is field organizing. We aren't scheduling anything of that scale currently. Keep your eyes peeled and your ears open and tuned in for future events because we are trying to make some, but those are funding dependent. So we're working on those. Let's see. The big focus for us right now is trying to get some canvassing going in some of the other parts of the state that we don't have a lot of reach in. So typically that's smaller areas, smaller towns that definitely don't know that there are other options. The word doesn't spread as easily. So what we're looking for is people who are willing to spend a couple of hours across 2 days. The first day would be walking around a neighborhood or a certain section of town and talking to those neighbors of yours, because we're all in this together, and find out if they are even remotely interested just through some general conversation. And we'll have a script for you to basically follow and find out if they're open to a conversation about additional candidates. And if they are, and they seem interested after you talk the bullet points, you're not gonna have to stand up for my campaign necessarily, but if they seem interested, one of the things they can do with you is order a batch of yard signs. So we have to order them in pairs of 16. So we can order 16 at a time. And instead of saying, hey, one person, you have to spend $160 to get these signs to go put out in your city, you can canvass, get the conversation going so people have buy-in, and then each person can put in $10, and then each of them get a sign to put in their yard and spread the word that way. So asking for a little bit of help, and you can spend a couple hours across 2 different days. One would be to do the initial canvassing, and then the second day would be putting the yard signs out. And that way you can say, hey, we're gonna have a conversation, you donate $10, and then they'll be in a week or whatever it is, and I'll come by and put it in your front yard. And that way we can do that quickly. So as many of those people as possible, that would be great. If you're interested, please use the volunteer form on the website. You can fill it out and just tell us, when you're available, and we would love to have you involved for as much time as you can be involved. Now, we're not here to, have a gotcha moment where we're like, yeah, a couple hours, and then, have you come in and they're like, by the way, we actually need like 20 hours a week. Like you now work for us. I don't have the funding to pay you, so and that's very clear in the form. I can't. We're too small of a campaign. We don't have the money to fund payment for staff. So everybody that's on on video that comes on these, they are all volunteers. Like, I don't pay myself. I can't pay the staff. So all of that money goes back out to the campaign, trying to get my name out and the message about wanting to improve access and quality of healthcare for all of our residents, better access and quality of our education system, and more equitably funded, more specifically, and then doing something about the justice system that we have in our state and the fact that it's essentially just a rebrand of slavery, and we have to change that entire system. So that's where we're at. That's what the message we're trying to get out. That resonates with a lot of people. Some people have pushback, and that's okay. I am not worried about the people who are giving pushback currently. I'm happy to talk to them. But if you're going to help canvass, I don't want you to feel like you have to argue points. Like, it's literally, hey, if you're interested, here's some info. If they're not, it's cool. If they want more info, we can have some leave behinds that you can leave with them, and they can learn more on the website and social media platforms, and then they can make a decision from there. But we have a lot of work to do and a lot of people to reach before November 8th, and that's where we're at right now. So, Jody, am I a politician? I mean, I am running for office, so if that qualifies me as a politician for you, then yes. If you mean, am I a career politician? No, I am not a career politician. I'm a guy from Daphne who got tired of the way our state's being run and decided to run to change things. What are your main PowerPoints? If you'll help, that will help. Hold on, TikTok just shifted. What are your main PowerPoints that will help lead you in votes for governor? My main PowerPoints. I need you to rephrase that, Curly, because I don't fully understand. I don't understand your question. Mary, what is your platform you're standing on? So it would be healthcare, education, and fixing and removing slavery from our state, finally. Yeah. All right. So we're talking about field organizing. We're getting a little off topic. So standing, what do you seek to change and uphold for the people? Yeah, okay, so that'd be better access to healthcare, quality healthcare, better access to education, quality and better funding, and the slavery system. So, yeah. This is field organizing, so we're trying to stay on topic of ways that we can get in front of more people face-to-face to actually talk to them and get the word out. So if you have questions about policy, that is Tuesday night. That is at Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. So I'm happy to talk about policy-specific questions on Tuesdays, or you can schedule a meeting and we can have a one-to-one conversation similar to this. But it'd be you and I publicly streamed typically. If you don't want to, then we don't have to. But I prefer to do things publicly so we're transparent. So let's stick with field organizing. So what I want to do, because I haven't done it yet, and I need to do it, so we're just going to do it live while we're on the air. Anita, I'm going to pull up the form that your gracious husband has helped reformat and fix. I'm going to walk through that form live so people can see kind of what info we are trying to gather while we're at people's homes so that we know we've talked to somebody and we don't go back and bug them again later on, but also so we can keep our volunteers safe. So let's pull up that. I believe that's going to be a form. TikTok, I see stuff coming through. If you have an actual question and it's field organizing related, use the Q&A box and I will get back to that as soon as I can. Canvassing data. Let's open that. Let's take a look at, that is the public version. Cool. And if we do inspect, we're going to mimic this on a phone, hopefully, so that this looks as close to what people would see on their phone as they're walking around in their cities and neighborhoods. So let's try that. And we're going to shrink that down a little bit so it's close to a phone size. All right, so let's do a screen share of this tab, that one there. Perfect. Okay, and if you can't see this right now on TikTok, so as antithetical as this seems, go to one of the other social media platforms and you can view the screen that I'm sharing. But we're walking through a canvassing data form. It says petition because it was designed for the petition that we had originally. We've tweaked it a little bit. I just need to rename it. But the idea is we're going to go canvass neighborhoods. Again, trying to get awareness for my name and then also potentially sign up for yard signs. So we're going to walk through this like we're at a new house. We're going to see how this flows and make sure we're not missing anything before we start handing people this form. So we are going to say, this is my email so that we know who's filling it out. That's mine. Street address, we're just going to say 123 Sesame Street, Sesame Street. And that is in, let's say, Hoover. And I don't know Hoover's zip code, so we're just going to put in another zip code. I don't know it offhand. 36604. Let's see. People were home, and we're going to hit next. What's our next options? So somebody's home. Let's see. How many people are of voting age? So we'll say there's 2. Let's say it's a stereotypical family. We've got 2 people over the age of 18 potentially. Are there eligible voters? Are all eligible voters registered? Not yet, but registration info is up above, so that should be covered first. That's I wonder. No, it's a big QR code, so that should be fine. Having that on the second page, with the not on the same page as the info to give them, we might consider putting the QR code on this page also. I'll have to think about that. I want to make sure if somebody accidentally skipped it, they don't have to go back a page when they're clicking on this guy here. But in theory, you're asking all these questions and then filling this out after the fact. You're not like standing there on your phone filling it out. So this should be something you can fill out after you talk to the people. So are they they're willing to financially support and get a yard sign? Yes or no? So if we click yes, and then pick which type. So let's say they say they paid cash. That's cool. And then if we click next, that means it's done. Okay, cool. So we're going to go back and try a different option and see if we say no, they didn't. What happens? That finishes anyway and submits it. All right. So what changes? Let's see. Shouldn't matter. So if we do credit card and click next, okay, that goes to a QR code where they can go to the website and buy the sign. So if we were here on the last one, we were taking payments for the single signs that people want them on the Square store, so that they can buy it individually. There's a big QR code if they say they want to pay with credit card. And then after that is it jumps to unsafe behavior. So that actually, we need to fix that. So let me see if I can fix that while we're live. We're doing it live. You know what? There's a couple Q&A questions on TikTok. So there's at least one. LGBTQIA plus, yes or no? I am not a member of the community, but I am fully supportive of that community and them having all of the rights as human beings. So healthcare, voting, marriage, adoption, if adoption is the right thing for the kid, foster care, same thing, if it's the right thing for the kid, and the family who no longer can take care of that child in both of those situations. If the best answer is for them to be adopted or put in the foster care system, then yes. I am not entirely sure that system works the way it should currently, but that is something that requires more research on my end and the team, because that is not a passion project of mine, but there are some people who have been following the account who are, and we're going to be talking about it at some point. Cool. Keep it in the Q&A questions. I'll get to them when I can take a break. So let's see. Answering this question goes to unsafe behavior. So I think we can skip that and just submit the form. Because at that point, it doesn't need to go to unsafe behavior because they didn't check unsafe behavior. So we should be good. Yeah, and then this is learn more, which is one of the previous options. Okay, cool. So that's been saved. Let me go back. And we're going to go back in the form, a couple pages, hopefully. And just restart the form. And let's Jody, so this isn't a normal live, and I know you didn't put in a Q&A question. You're having a conversation with everybody else. This is for field organizing, so if you have a question about field organizing, you can put that in the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer those questions. That's how we roll. Have I thought about setting up a Discord? Those become, from my experience, from a different group that I was previously involved in, those become a place for people to hang out and chat and not get work done. So no, we're not using Discord. Not currently. It's great for like networking and being community, but not getting work done, and that's what the volunteer base is for. If you're talking about just for fans of the campaign, maybe, but I don't have someone who will manage that Discord server. So if you would like to volunteer to manage a Discord server, I have it set up with basically no settings. It exists. No one's using it because I haven't promoted it to anybody, but it does exist. Yeah, Jody, there are other lives, and you're welcome to participate in those. And it's more of a like TikTok engagement thing, but this one's literally talking about field organizing, and we're just giving info out. This is not normal, and I get it. It is a transparent campaign meeting. Like it is, and one of my campaign staff members is not here, so you would normally be hearing more than one person. The other person who's here is actually helping me take notes, so they're not chatting a bunch because they're focused and taking notes. So that wasn't meant to be disrespectful. It was just that's not the point of this specific meeting. Let's go back to the first page because I want to make sure we answered a couple other questions. So we have their info, and then is the resident present? So if we hit they are not home, what happens there? Did we leave literature? Yes or no? If not, why? So let's just say yes. We left a pamphlet or something else. That's cool. And that goes to unsafe behavior also. So we need to look at that because they're not home, so there wasn't unsafe behavior. So we're good there. That should be a submit form. So that should be fine. So let's go back a page or two. And let's see. So they are home.
Hey, Drew.
John, what's up?
Hey, so the unsafe behavior, with the way the Google Forms work, if whatever the last question is on the page, if you've got actions there, that's what's going to happen regardless of where you have the unsafe behavior. So the only way I could get the unsafe behavior to happen was to have that as basically the last section and basically every ending section could go to.
Oh, okay. So there was supposed to be a question about unsafe behavior to trigger that. Was that question not on the form?
Well, I had to make that part of like a new section for unsafe behavior because if you answered yes for unsafe behavior, then whatever happens after that on the form, like if
yeah, so yeah, no, so that was actually, I think that was intentional. So if there's unsafe behavior, the canvasser should be leaving immediately. None of the other questions matter. Like something happened and they should not be worrying about any other questions. Like it's what's the address? Unsafe behavior, leave. Like don't stick around. Tell us, fill it out later. Just make sure you have the address and tell us why you had to leave. Like I do not care about anything else if there's something that is unsafe about that location for someone canvassing, because I don't want to send somebody back there. That was the point of that question. So
okay. I can fix that real quick then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'm in there, but if you want to, it just needs to be dragged back up to I think the first section. In that way,
the problem was that there was another question right after that one that did something else, and so with the way the forms work, that second question overrode whatever you put for the.
Oh, okay. Action. Oh, was the resident home the presence one?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we put unsafe behavior as the last question, it should override the other one, correct?
Right, but then whatever answer you put for, well.
Yeah, so if we put unsafe behavior and no just means continue, like it's just do the next thing, it should use the other questions, that routing. It should send us to the right place.
Okay. Yeah, I'll play with it.
Okay. And I just switched it to continue to next section because I was playing with it while we're talking. So when you see it, I've already started that process. Just double check it. But yeah, we want that to be basically one of the first questions, like on the first page, and that way there's no question. Like if it's not safe, you shouldn't be there. Like just leave. That is my top priority is people and not collecting data. Like this is in the hopes of not pestering more people. And knowing if somebody's interested, and that way we have an address to mail a card to or something if we wanted to, and they were interested and we end up getting funding, we can mail a card or something later on closer to the election and say, hey, one of our canvassers stopped by, we wanted to make sure you remembered how to spell my name, or whatever quirky thing we want to do, but we can get that info to them later on. But unsafe behavior, for everybody watching, John, I know you heard me the first couple times, unsafe behavior is the higher. It takes precedent over anything else in that form other than the address, essentially. And I have to assume that if it's unsafe behavior, like they're home at that point. I'm going to take it back. There could be, maybe we need to word that because it could be like a loose dog or something else. Maybe think about the verbiage. If you, Anita and Taylor, want to think about the verbiage on that question, because it doesn't necessarily mean maybe it's an unsafe location, not unsafe behavior. And Robert, hey, thanks. Good morning. Because it may not be behavior, right? It could just be, I don't know, threatening signage or, something else along those lines that just makes whoever the canvasser is not feel comfortable with the location, right? Amanda, do you have an infographic that can be shared across social media platforms with your beard logo, just very short platform bullets, having those? Yes, we are working on putting that on the website. That will be up shortly. We've got to make sure that we get the graphic correctly. I say that because consistent bullet platforms keep you from assuming you're event dependent. Yeah. I did switch it to pro-abortion after Roe v. Wade because that is healthcare, and it's kind of a subtopic of healthcare. So that I've got to figure out how we let people know, especially given the other two candidates on both sides. The Democrat and the Republican candidate for governor are both pro-life. I don't want to just leave it at healthcare. I've got to figure out how to do that. So let me put some more thought into the graphic that we are in the middle of making. So I want to make sure we're clear on that, but it doesn't look like pandering. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Let's see. Let me get back to my form. So I think once we rearrange that, everything else is probably good. I don't know if this is a conditional question about eligible voters. Let me go back to the back end piece and see. John, it looks like you're in here too, so I'm not going to move anything. I'm just going to look. Let's see. Eligible voters. That is not a conditional question, so it's just a straight answer and then moves on. That's fine. Will they support financially? Oh, okay, and then the next one's the unsafe. So yeah, we've got to look at all of those sections. But I think all the conditionals for every other question should be right from what it looks like. So we should be good. Cool. Let's see. So I think we're good there. I'm going to close that tab. And this may be an early meeting. So TikTok and Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, if you all have questions for me, I'm going to open them up to just general questions. If you want to make it policy, we can talk policy. That's fine. That's the only field organizing thing that I knew we could cover with just me here without a bunch of input from other people. And nobody wanted to ask field organizing questions. So we will shift topics and just jump into general campaign stuff if you want to chat. I can stay for half an hour at max. I'm going to end it at 11, trying to stick my meeting to an hour, plus Google Meet will literally end the meeting at an hour. So let's see. Robert, thank you for the volunteer app. We will get to you as quickly as possible. We just did a reorg in the beginning of June, and then that was literally starting from the ground up. So we, the entire organization, management side, tasks, everything got started over in June. So we're trying to get through to everybody. Plus there was a huge influx on the Roe v. Wade decision. We had like 25 applications come in. So we're trying to do our due diligence and make sure we're bringing people on board that actually care about the state. So let me scroll back a little bit and see if there was another actual questions. Let's see. You already answered these questions. What about ignoring his name out? Thank you, Proud. Appreciate it. Questions about putting the Q&A box. Yep. You guys are taking care of me. I appreciate it. TikTok. Much appreciated. Kim, I appreciate it. And again, like fill out the app. It's going to feel like an employment application, and that is actually intentional. So, and it's a good time to mention this. We're on the field organizing meeting. The idea behind the volunteer app is people who want to get work done. Like if you just want to support the campaign through like commenting and sharing and joining meetings, you don't have to volunteer to do that. You can just show up. Like that's like the links are publicly accessible on the website. To even join the Google Meet link that I was talking about sharing the screen earlier, you can join that from my website. Like they are scheduled, they're regular every Tuesday at 7, every Saturday at 9, every Saturday at 10. We have three meetings currently that cover policy on Tuesdays, campaign strategy at 9 o'clock on Saturday, and then this field organizing at 10 on Saturdays. And they are literally publicly accessible Google Meet links. Be respectful and make sure we're actually trying to help Alabama, but everybody's welcome, because I am one person with a very limited perspective, and I want to make sure that anything that I decide to propose has intersectionality considered. It's probably the best way to phrase that. Do I have a marketing team? So that everybody is pitching in on every aspect. So do I have a dedicated marketing team? No. I work for a marketing agency, so I have a lot of knowledge that I'm putting in place, which is why if you search my name on Google, I take up the first page in one way or another. If you're in Alabama, at least, I should take up the first page. Every city is a little bit different, but if I'm doing my job right, I take up quite a few of those slots, if not all of them. But you are welcome to join if marketing is your thing and you enjoy any aspect of that. So if it's copywriting, if it's images, if it's SEO related, all of that, you're welcome to join the team and volunteer and put in some work. A good time to mention that, again, grassroots campaign, I cannot pay you. The volunteer form makes that very apparent. I don't even pay my campaign manager because I would rather put the limited resources that I have towards getting the message out and let people who, like me, are so frustrated that they will put time on top of their day job, because I have a day job, they will put time in above and beyond to help change the state. And like, I'm not asking more of you than I'm asking of myself. So, if you can't, like, there are people who say, hey, like, I'm full-time, I'm trying to earn a new degree. I can't guarantee I'll be able to help. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, if you want to comment, you want to share, you want to engage in posts, and you want to attend a meeting when you can, please do. Don't feel like you have to fill out the volunteer app unless you know you want to help. And I mean that as sincerely as I can. I want your help, but only if you can, and we'll be able to consistently help. And that way our team isn't relying on someone who can't always be there. And like, I wouldn't be mad if you didn't make it. I don't want my team to have to take on more work than they had planned. So, if we have 20 hours worth of stuff to do this week, and we have people who have signed up and they all said they have enough hours, and we would have 26 hours, so we have some leeway. And then somebody wasn't accurate in how many hours they could donate, and we actually only have 18 hours worth of time, then 2 hours of stuff doesn't get done, right? Like, it's a part of project management, which is what I do for a living, which is why I think I'll be a great fit for this role. I can organize groups of people to work together to do a thing, and that's literally what the governor does. So that's where we're at. You're in Fairhope? Sweet. Yeah, I'm in Daphne, and you don't have to be from my area to help either. Like, one of the person who was normally here, they had to go to brunch, and that's my campaign manager, is from Birmingham. So like, everything's virtually and online for a reason. I want to do in-person events, but the volunteer base, I don't care if you live in Alabama and want to volunteer your time. Like, if you know somebody who's good at SEO and wants to donate that time, so I don't have to take on that responsibility, even though I know a decent chunk about it, and they live in Arizona and they are not currently donating time to somebody there to make change in Arizona, then sure, bring them on. Works for me. You can't vote for me, but you can still help. You can donate time. Oh, Q&A box. Didn't see that pop in. Sorry. Let's see. What areas in Alabama are you most focused on covering? A lot of it, especially the canvassing stuff, we want to reach people who don't have a huge metropolitan area. So it's smaller cities and more rural areas, because it is harder for me to get there. So I would love to reach those areas. And honestly, those are the people that are affected by our policies the most drastically. So, healthcare access. People in rural areas have lower access to hospitals, right? And education there, typically, those are poorer areas, typically, which means their education suffers. And they also, rural and remote areas are the ones that ends up getting the prisons. So they all, they all tie back to rural areas. I care about our cities also, because there's some poor sections of cities. So don't get me wrong there, but the focus is trying to reach some of the rural areas currently. Thoughts on lottery. Jumo, I'm catching it, but sometimes the chat gets wild, so try to use the Q&A feature. Thoughts on lottery. I will say this every time somebody brings it up. I don't like the way the lottery has been presented in any time it's been told to me. So my problem generally with the lottery is it's usually proposed as a way to fund, let's say, education, because that's usually like, oh, education sucks in Alabama, it needs more funding, do a lottery. Well, the lottery, generally speaking, most people who participate the most in the lottery are already going to be impoverished. So what that actually means is we've implemented a system of revenue that is predominantly funded by the people we're trying to help with that funding. So like they're actually still just funding their own education at that point. It's not actually benefiting them. If anything, it's having them gamble money away that they may not actually see and benefit based on the way that we fund our schools anyway. We don't fund them equitably with the money we have. So if we get more, we still have to figure out how we're going to distribute that more equitably. It's the right word. So hope that helps. Spiritual, what are your thoughts on constitutional carry? The second A question, I'm still battling and wrestling with. I am not a firearms enthusiast, so my personal opinion, a lot of people would not like, but I'm not here to implement my personal opinions. What I want to do is talk to more people who are familiar with firearms safety, and then also the healthcare aspect of that entire situation. We have to get all of those people involved to discuss that as a topic. With all of that said, I don't think a state change to firearms policy is the long-term solution, because we are bordered by other states who may not follow that same policy, and there's nothing physically stopping them from coming into our state and causing harm. So it would be a good stopgap, something to start the process, but it's not a long-term solution. If that's something you're passionate about, please schedule a meeting. There's a publicly accessible way to schedule a meeting with me on my website. So click on the bio, go to the link, go to the schedule a meeting button, and schedule a call. It's a 30-minute call through preferably public, so we can have this conversation like we are right now, and everybody can benefit from that discussion and know, they can see me learn more about things so that I can better govern the state. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to do that publicly, there is an option for a private conversation. For this, I think it would be beneficial to do it publicly. We're not talking about your personal, medical history and talking about that in the relations to healthcare. Like some people have wanted to have private conversations for that reason. They didn't want to give out their personal info. But you did it with a Google Meet. Can you change it to a live? Yeah. Reply back to it and let me know you want to switch it to a live event. Yeah, we'll switch that for sure. Yeah, Robert was talking with him yesterday, and we don't agree on everything, and it was a good conversation. We actually didn't get to the Second Amendment much. We meant to. It was actually one of the topics, and we just didn't eventually get to it. How would you propose education reform in Alabama? Let me put that up on the screen. No other questions on the other platforms. The biggest thing is funding equitably. I know based on other people's research that the way we handle our distribution of funds, so I don't fully understand the math behind it, and that's part of the problem. Is it's a very convoluted system that we use in our state. We use something called units, and if that doesn't make sense to you, I say it's intentional. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We basically take the number of students that are registered at the beginning of, let's say, this year, so in like the spring, and we use that number of students that are registered to figure out, we convert that into average numbers of other things like administrators and teachers and all the other pieces, and then turn that into a units number, and then we use that to fund. And then the problem is not just that, but also where the funding comes from is part of the problem. So there's property taxes, for instance, pay for a portion of our education. And we talked about earlier wanting to focus on rural areas because if they are already a poorer community, their property values are lower, which means they get lower funding for their schools. So it's a to quote Thor 3, it's a circle, but not a real circle. It's like a freaky circle. Like things just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because if you have less education, there's less chance for economic growth, which means you stay poor, and it gets worse over time. And that's obvious in the data, like in the statistics. If you go look at things like people, it's a problem. Yeah. Let's see. So that's where I'm at currently with the education reform, is starting with funding and how we handle the funding, both in where it comes from, but how it's distributed. None of that makes sense to me, and it also doesn't make sense to very smart people who have done research papers on it. Are you working with any political consultants? Periodically. I don't have anybody on staff because I don't have the funding for it. But I've spoken with a couple people who have dealt with campaigns in the past, and they're helping me out as best they can for pro bono. So they're helping me as much as they can. I am hoping to be able to kick some money back for some of that consulting at some point, but that has not happened as of yet. So if you know somebody who's willing to help an independent who wants to push back against this ridiculous state and what we're doing, I would love to chat. You can either send them my info, or if you know them well enough, you can send me their info, whichever one works best. I don't know your situation and theirs, but if you know somebody you're thinking of, please get us in touch. Do I support anyone running locally? In my area, I don't have anybody that I am directly connected to. I've heard of some people that are running that we seem to be aligned, but we have not engaged directly as like face-to-face conversations, but their platforms seem pretty good. I don't have their names offhand. I wasn't prepared for that for this meeting, so don't have it, but yes. For statewide, just generally local, people running for their local, but not necessarily local to me, yes. The two people that I am engaged with here on TikTok regularly, I mention their name anytime somebody mentions Huntsville or Madison County. So if we have anybody who's from that area, Mallory Hagan and Corey, dang it, it's Corey for the People. I think it's Wilson. It's Corey Wilson. Both of them are here on TikTok, and our platforms align pretty closely. I'm not gonna say we fully agree on everything. I can't say that, but we agree enough to be connected on TikTok. We are actually. I am hoping to have a meeting between the three of us and at least one person on each campaign to have a conversation about what I think it's Arizona is some of their city councils are finding ways to limit or mitigate the recourse that people are having for abortions being illegal in our state or across the country. Sorry, but I'm curious what we can do at a state level through the executive branch, and it's essentially the city councils saying don't prioritize these offenses, right? So they're saying, hey, yeah, it's still illegal, sure, but we have more important things to do. So hey, district attorneys, don't focus on this. Like this is not your priority for our city. Your priority should be something else, and that should mitigate some of that damage. Let's see. Do you agree with giving bigger business tax? Wait, do I agree with giving bigger business tax? Oh, cuts to bring them into the state. No, I don't, generally speaking. That doesn't benefit. It sounds like it's going to bring jobs, but it doesn't benefit the people. Not usually. It would depend on the business, maybe. If you have specifics, we can talk about it, but I don't generally want to give businesses a break. I want to give people a leg up, not the business. That's probably going to start some fights, but it'll be all right. Forgot to pull up your question when I answered it. Sorry. So like that. So we have to fund things in our state. So if we want to improve healthcare, expanding Medicaid is a good example, right? If we want to give access to healthcare to more people as a state, then we have to pay for that. Like we don't make our own money. We're not the federal government, so we have to fund it through something, taxes. So giving tax breaks to big businesses reduces our ability to help the people of our state. And the fact that our state doesn't have a minimum wage, bringing additional businesses in and not having a minimum wage is concerning. So again, it's not, everything is tied together. So it's not something I can just say, yeah, we're going to fix it by doing X. And it's like, no, we need to do the whole alphabet. Like we have to do a lot of stuff in order to actually help people in our state, the actual like everyday citizens and residents. I try not to say citizens because people live here who aren't citizens of the state technically, and that's a weird qualification to make. But the people who live here, right? If you're living here, you should deserve to not die because you don't have enough money. And healthcare is one of those things. So we had to fund that through taxes. Now, one thing we could do is actually the opposite, and I don't have specifics, but if let's say hypothetically there's a business that relies heavily on a resource that is a physical resource here in the state. And I don't mean people, because I don't want to talk about people as resources, but pick a resource that our state has. And if they are using that resource, maybe taxing them more. Like they want to use our state resources that should belong to the people. You know, maybe we should use those resources to help the entire state. Let's see, would I repeal the 2016 ban on minimum wage? If that is something that is actually within my power, sure. I would love to do that and improve the minimum wage, but from my understanding, again, I'm still trying to learn all of this, because I'm not a career politician. Like this isn't something I've wanted to do for 10 years. I have to look at that, but I would like to, because that's I made a video yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I made a video talking about the fact that Alabama has a $0 minimum wage, and people argued with me to say, like, why make minimum wage? I'll make $7.25 in Alabama. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's the federal minimum wage. Our state doesn't have one. So if the federal minimum wage disappeared for some reason, let's say, I don't know, like something wonky happened at the federal level and they started repealing a bunch of things and getting rid of protections and things that help the people at a federal level, as crazy as that sounds, if that happened, our state wouldn't have a minimum wage. And I find that concerning. So like we should at least set a minimum wage, right? Like as a state, we should say, hey, our people are worth X, at least per hour. That's something that I think we should do, because these are crazy times. So I think we should do that. Comfy, yeah, no, I got it. I got it. That was intentional. Spiritual Southern Mama asked him a question for a reason. She went missing in 2018 and was found in 2021. Police are doing nothing. No, I have not heard anything about that. So, Anita, you don't have to unmute, but put down somewhere. It's not field organizing related, but just put it down so we don't lose track of it. But Sherry Saunders, it's SHARI and then SAUNDERS. I don't know anything about her case. It's not surprising that stuff like that doesn't make the news. It doesn't make the state look good, so people don't like to talk about it. What we do about policing in the state and how they can do their job, I'm looking into that as well. But again, I have to remain focused so that something actually gets done. I don't have a plan for that, but I understand how that group of people negatively impact the citizens of our state, the residents of our state. If you're not familiar, go look at, I don't know, Hoover from 2020, I think. Where there were hundreds of people, at least 100, who were arrested for protesting, and they have not been fully. Their case is still open, so they have charges against them still, and it's a concern. I don't have a solution, but it's a concern. Working on it, but again, I'm not a career politician. So like I didn't come into this with a bunch of plans. I'd much rather talk to people, because I wouldn't have known about the Hoover thing from Daphne until I met someone who was involved and brought that to my attention, because it doesn't make the news, because it doesn't make anyone look good. So how would we go about getting your yard sign? Nosferatu? Nosferatu? Is that what that says? Oh, that's a good name. Nice feral too, instead of Nosferatu. I don't think that originally has an L. That's a play on the name. I like it. So yard signs. The easiest way is to buy a batch of them, and I get that it is $160, and that is not something that everybody can do. So the flip side of that is to get 15 other people and all pitch in $10 and order a batch, and then we'll just drop ship them to one of your addresses, and that way you can distribute them to your neighbors. Yeah. Let's go back up. Let's see. Really hope you get the chance to at least make changes. That's what I'm hoping for. Like, there's enough people in the state that are pissed and aren't voting that we just need to get my name in front of them, and we can do this. You're not in Alabama, but cheering for you. Thank you, Spicy. Appreciate it. Will you do anything about how DHR is misused by police courts? You mean, yeah, Department of Human Resources? Yeah, that's a concern. It's not a specialty of mine, but that is something. There's a couple people who have been on my lives a few times, and they have brought it up, and we want to talk more about it, because I don't have no direct connection to the foster care system or the adoption systems in our state. The more that I hear from people who have gone through that system, the more concerned I get. When you have people who go through a system that's supposed to help people calling themselves survivors of a system rather than, graduates or benefits or benefactors or, any other positive term, but they call themselves survivors, that is something that needs to be addressed. Not exactly sure what that addressment looks like, but I will say this. I don't like that we celebrate the head of the DHR. We celebrate her for increasing the number of adoptions. And that sounds good on face value. You're like, yeah, kids need help, so they got adopted and they adopted more. That's cool. Well, sure, but there's a good chunk of those that statistically are in the system because their families can't support them. And instead of helping the families, we take the kids out of the family and then give money to other people to take care of the kids that didn't have the money to take care of them and their family. It's like, it's a weird system as a whole. I'm not saying there aren't times when people have to get put, or the kids would benefit from being in the foster care system, that type of situation in adoption, but I don't know that it should be used as broadly as it is currently. Do you need someone to help ship out yard signs for you in Huntsville? Rocket City, yes. I also need people to order them from Huntsville. I actually had a few people roughly in that area order some singles on accident. They didn't realize I didn't make it clear enough in the title of the product that it is meant for groups of volunteers to work together on. It was in the description, but it wasn't very clear, evidently. So a few people ordered some singles, and I think some are in Huntsville. So Anita, if you will write down Rocket City Rainbows, Huntsville yard signs, we'll get in touch to maybe distribute those out, because if I have a couple, I can just ship all of them to you instead of shipping individually to each person, and maybe save on some shippings to be thrifty and spend our campaign money more wisely. I missed something. Somebody saying they're glad about the jury doing something. Okay, Huntsville recently won the Golden Padlock Award for hiding and defending a police officer who murdered a man. Yeah, that it's not surprising, not Huntsville specifically, but just that stuff happens all the time across the country. I don't expect our state to be any different. Again, one of the things that has to be addressed, don't have a solution yet. Those are police are employees of their municipality. I have not figured out a way for the governor to affect that directly without using creative means that I don't want to use unless it's absolutely necessary. Recycling in Alabama. So Fanta, recycling is something that everybody likes to talk about, but a lot of people don't realize how little individual recycling actually helps. From what I understand, again, there's somebody in the chat on the other ones. I'm not ignoring you, other platforms. Super sorry about that. Yeah, okay, Amanda, I'll get you in a second. So recycling, individual recycling sounds great, but you have to do it correctly, or it's not actually good recycling. You have to clean all of your bottles and cans and everything else. They're supposed to be clean before they get to the recycling center. Otherwise, it's not helpful. The flip side is we have to keep recycling as long as companies make products that come with recyclable materials instead of just biodegradable materials or reusable materials. And what a lot of people aren't aware of is the campaign that happened back in the 80s or 90s. And that was a campaign by companies to make people feel bad about not recycling instead of just making their products better in the first place. I don't think there's a good solution. Not to mention there's nobody to buy our recycling products anymore. Aluminum's probably a good bet. We could look at aluminum maybe. But plastics, we used to ship those over to China and they would buy our recycling materials, and they've stopped because it's cheaper for them just to make more. So, yep. Let's see. Do anything about how states registered offenders get off so easily? registered offenders. Blue Ad, I'm not sure what you mean. Let me answer Amanda's question, because Facebook, all of the other platforms other than TikTok are going to end in like 3 minutes because my Google meeting is going to end. Anita, thank you for your help. If this cuts off in the middle of a sentence, super sorry. Amanda, UBI, I like the idea. It's really hard for a state to implement that because we have to come up with the money. That should be a federal program, because they can make as much money as they have resources for. So as long as they can employ enough people to get that money into society, they can fund those programs. There's a limit, but it's, they have a lot more flexibility because they make their own money. And I don't mean printing money. Like, if you want to have that conversation, we can. It's not my specialty, but I like the idea. It would have to be locally balanced though. So like we shouldn't do it we should do it at a federal level from a policy point, but the amount should be very local, like county size. Basically say, hey, what does it cost to live in this county? That's your UBI. And then that would be adjusted every year as stuff changes. Something along those lines. So I hope that answered your question. Before I run out of time, I'm going to intentionally end the stream on the other platforms. So Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook profile, and Twitter. Thank you for hanging out and chatting. If you're watching this on Twitter, I don't see your replies here. You have to go to one of the other platforms and comment there because they don't show up in the stream. They don't even show up for me like on the platform. I have to go look afterwards. You can comment as long as it's not timely. If you want me to reply during the call, I can't do that when you comment on Twitter. So everybody else, all those platforms, if I'm looking at the camera directly at you, you have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you on Tuesday, hopefully at 7 p.m. for our policy meeting, and then next Saturday at 9 for campaign strategy, and again at 10 o'clock for field organizing. And then keep an eye on my profiles for random live streams with residents or out-of-state people who are interested in our state becoming better, maybe people that want to move back and don't feel comfortable moving back because of our current political climate. So have a good rest of the day, and I will